It started with a knock at the door. Not hers. Not mine. A sleek black car pulled up in front of our house at 6:02 p.m. sharp, engine still humming, hazard lights blinking like a countdown. The driver didn't ring the doorbell. He didn't have to. Dana was already at the mirror, applying that red lipstick she only ever wore to work events. She'd spent the last hour humming to herself in the hallway, pretending not to notice I had set the table. Candles lit. Wine breathing. Our anniversary playlist softly looping in the background, the one she made back when we were still us. I stood in the dining room, dressed like a fool in the shirt she once called her favorite, holding a plate of mushroom risotto that had already gone cold. She walked past me without looking, without asking, without saying a single word. I followed her with my eyes, not my feet. That part of me stayed frozen, watching, listening to her heels clack across the hardwood. She grabbed her purse, checked her lipstick in the hallway mirror again, and whispered, "I won't be long." But I knew she would be. She always was, lately, especially when he was involved. Client meeting, she had mumbled that morning, avoiding my eyes as she packed her overnight bag, which she quickly pretended was just her laptop bag. "Roland needs me there. It's important." Important. Like that word still meant anything between us. Our 6th anniversary had been on the calendar for months. I even took time off work to cook, to set everything just right. But apparently, Roland, her boss, the regional VP who always lingered too long when she spoke, needed her more than I did. I didn't say a thing as the front door opened and closed. She left, and in that silence, something inside me cracked so quietly, even I didn't notice at first. I didn't follow her. I didn't call. Instead, I walked to our bedroom, and I saw the mistake she left behind. Something she didn't mean for me to see. Or maybe she was just careless now, confident I wouldn't notice. But I did. And once I saw it, I realized the dinner wasn't the betrayal. It was just the beginning. I stood there in our bedroom, the house so quiet I could hear the ticking of the hallway clock. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't snooping. But when I sat down at the edge of the bed to loosen my tie, something caught my eye. A folded slip of paper sticking awkwardly out from the inside pocket of her work blazer. The same blazer she always wore to those so-called client meetings. Now, I know what you're thinking. Maybe I should have just left it alone. Trusted her. Given her the benefit of the doubt. But we were past that, weren't we? She walked out on our anniversary night for another man's dinner table. And the way she didn't even flinch, didn't look at me. I wasn't about to pretend everything was fine. So yeah, I opened the note. It wasn't long. Just one line, written in quick, confident handwriting, not hers. Looking forward to dessert this time. We're the red one. There was no name. No signature. Just that. I read it 3 times. My stomach sank. Not because of the words, but because of what it confirmed. All the skipped dinners. The overnight trips that magically appeared on her calendar. The way she'd get home and immediately head for a shower, barely speaking. I had gaslit myself into thinking it was all work stress. Promotions. Deadlines. But dessert this time? That wasn't about business. That was personal. That was intimate. That was intentional. And the red one? I knew exactly what he meant. The red dress she kept in the back of her closet, the one she never wore for me, not since our 3rd anniversary. She once said it made her feel too much. Apparently, it was just enough for him. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't flip tables or throw her stuff in the street like in those dramatic movies. That would have been easier. I just sat there, holding that tiny note in my hand, and I swear to God, it felt heavier than our entire marriage. I thought about calling her, telling her I found it, confronting her. But what would that accomplish? I could already picture how it would go. The fake shock in her voice, the sudden anger at me for invading her privacy, the deflection, the tears, the apology that never actually says what she's sorry for. No, I didn't want her words. I wanted her silence. So I took my phone, opened our shared calendar, and canceled our dinner reservation with one click. That restaurant, the one I saved up for, weeks in advance, gone in a second. I deleted the playlist she made. I closed the photo folder labeled us. And then I opened my notes app and typed 4 simple words. You chose him. Goodbye. I left the message on the kitchen table, next to the bottle of wine I never opened and the candles that had burned down to nothing. And then I disappeared. But not far. I wasn't done yet. Because if she thought walking out on our anniversary was bad, she had no idea what was coming. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I spent hours sitting in my car, engine off, hands clenched around the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. Her note was still in my jacket pocket, crumpled but impossible to ignore. I knew I should have driven away, left town, gone to my brother's, or checked into some cheap motel on the outskirts and just turned the page. But something inside me refused to move on without seeing it for myself. I needed to know. I needed to watch the fantasy die with my own eyes, so there'd be nothing left to cling to. No excuses. No doubt. Just truth. At 10:52 p.m., I opened the location-sharing app we still had on our phones. She'd forgotten to disable it. Or maybe she never thought I'd check. I hadn't used it in months. I used to look at it when she was flying, just to make sure she landed safely. Now I was watching that little blue dot hover outside the Westbourne Grand Hotel, right across town. One of those luxury towers with glowing fountains and valet parking. I stared at the screen for maybe 5 minutes, just watching her not move. I told myself I was pathetic, weak, a loser for even considering what I was about to do. Then I started the car. 20 minutes later, I was standing across the street from the entrance, parked under a flickering street lamp. I told myself I'd just watch. 5 minutes, tops. Just enough to settle the voice in my head screaming that something wasn't right. That maybe there was some innocent explanation. That maybe I was still the problem, like she always hinted. At 11:34, I saw her. She stepped outside through the rotating doors, laughing at something, hand tucked around the arm of a man in a charcoal gray suit. He wasn't touching her inappropriately, not quite, but he didn't have to. The way she looked up at him, like a schoolgirl trying to impress the teacher. That told me everything. That wasn't a business dinner. That wasn't a client. That was Roland. And suddenly all the pieces snapped into place like a jigsaw puzzle I'd been trying not to solve. The late meetings. The canceled plans. The lipstick. The perfume she only wore for high-end clients. I'd known. Deep down, I always knew. But seeing her, my wife, glow like that beside another man while I sat alone in my car like a rejected extra from a rom-com, that ripped whatever was left of my heart into confetti. She leaned in closer, whispered something in his ear. He laughed. She touched his chest, lightly. And then, they kissed. Right there under the canopy, like they didn't have a care in the world. Like I didn't exist. That's when something changed in me. Not anger, not yet. It was more like numbness. A kind of peaceful detachment, like I'd just walked out of my own body and left the idiot version of myself behind. I didn't cry. I didn't slam the dashboard. I just started thinking, calculating, remembering. I remembered our wedding vows. I remembered the first time she told me she hated secrets. I remembered how she promised to never become one of those people who cheated just because it felt good in the moment. I remembered it all, and I realized I was done being the guy who forgives, who waits, who listens to another it meant nothing speech while she clutches her wine and avoids eye contact. No, not this time. I started the car, but I didn't go home. I went somewhere else, somewhere quiet, somewhere that would help me prepare for the next step. Because now I wasn't just the husband she betrayed. I was the one making the plan, and she would never see it coming. When people think of betrayal, they imagine screaming, confrontations, slammed doors, crying on the floor. But I didn't do any of that. I didn't rush into the hotel or chase her down the sidewalk. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't even flinch when they disappeared back through the hotel entrance together, hand in hand like some polished power couple. No, I drove away, slowly, like a man headed to the store for milk. But inside, I was breaking in ways no one could see. You know what I did next? I went home. To our home. That dumb little two-story with the dying lawn and the broken porch light I kept forgetting to fix. I walked inside, and it smelled like the risotto I made for our anniversary, now cold, heavy in the air, like a ghost of a moment that never happened. I didn't touch the food. I didn't touch anything. I just sat down at the dining table, lit the one remaining candle, and opened my laptop. I started with our bank accounts. She always handled the finances, but I had access. She just didn't think I cared enough to look. Big mistake, because as I scrolled, I saw patterns. Hotel bookings she never mentioned. Expensive dinners in cities she claimed she never visited. A $240 bracelet bought from a boutique we never stepped foot in together. All within the last 6 months. Next, I opened our shared photo drive. You know the kind. Couples use it to drop in vacation pics or grocery lists, or whatever. I hadn't opened it in forever. but buried in a folder called Q4 Sales Pitch, I found a few images that weren't PowerPoints. They weren't explicit, but they didn't need to be. One showed Roland and Dana at a table, her hand on his. Another was a mirror selfie of her in that same red dress, taken in a hotel bathroom. Timestamped, geotagged, labeled Night 2, Kill Shot Kiss Mark. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't want to. But by now, I understood she hadn't just cheated. She'd replaced me, piece by piece, moment by moment, quietly rewriting the story of her life while I sat at home, still believing I was part of it. I wasn't even the backup plan anymore. I was a leftover habit she hadn't had the guts to toss. But I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was methodical. At 2:15 a.m., I pulled out my old hard drive from college, the one where I used to back up all my files, years ago when I still had dreams and hobbies and time. I started moving everything over. Documents, photos, videos, every piece of me, off the cloud, out of the house, offline, quietly. Then I opened our lease agreement. The house was under both our names, but the security deposit? That came from my account. The utilities? All in my name. So I started making phone calls. Quiet ones. No arguments. No warnings. I told the landlord I'd be vacating early. I scheduled disconnection dates. I filed a mail forwarding request. And finally, I packed. Not everything. Just enough to walk out with clean hands and a full spine. The essentials. My laptop. My documents. My clothes. My dignity, finally. By sunrise, the only thing left in that house with my name on it was a single envelope. Inside was a printed copy of her hotel receipt, a photo of her and Roland from the photo drive, and a sticky note that read, "Don't worry. You made your choice. I'm just honoring it." I locked the door behind me, and for the first time in a long time, I felt light. But this isn't the end, because as I would soon find out, walking away from someone like Dana doesn't make her vanish. It makes her chase. She didn't expect me to leave. That much was obvious. She walked into that house the next afternoon like she owned it, like she could slide right back into her perfect little lie with no consequences. The neighbor across the street, Mrs. Hillman, told me later that Dana looked confused at first. Not panicked, not guilty, just mildly annoyed. Like the living room wasn't arranged the way she left it. Like she was expecting me to be curled up on the couch with takeout, sulking, waiting for her fake apology and empty promises. But all she found was silence, and that envelope. From what I've heard, she stood there for a long time, holding the hotel receipt, staring at the photo of her and Roland, frozen in a moment she probably never thought I'd see. And then she read the sticky note. Just 8 words. "Don't worry. You made your choice. I'm just honoring it." That was when, apparently, she started to crack. Not cry. Not yet. No, Dana doesn't cry when she loses something. She gets angry. She called me 34 times in under 2 hours. I didn't answer once. The voicemails were a progression of panic. At first, she was casual. Breezy even. "Hey babe, I think we had a mix-up. Can you call me when you get a sec?" Then confusion crept in. "Did something happen? You're not answering." I'm starting to freak out a little. And then came the rage. "Are you kidding me with this silent treatment crap, Curtis? Seriously? After everything I do for us?" For us. That one made me laugh out loud. Alone, in a motel 2 towns over, eating vending machine peanuts and watching her unravel through a tiny speaker. It wasn't even vindication. It was just surreal. Like watching someone try to glue a broken mirror back together and blame the glass for shattering. But the best part came later that evening. I was sitting in the corner of that cheap motel room, staring at my phone on silent, when the texts started rolling in from people I hadn't heard from in years. "Dude, what's going on with you and Dana? Bro, she just posted something wild. You okay? Check her Insta story. Like, right now." I opened her Instagram. And there it was, her face, filtered to perfection, tears carefully placed like movie makeup, sobbing into the camera with captions like, "Love isn't supposed to hurt like this," and 6 years, and he ghosted me. No closure. No goodbye. She was painting herself as the victim. I knew she would. I knew Dana couldn't handle the idea that someone left her first. In her version, I was the cold, heartless man who walked away without warning. And Roland? Nowhere to be found in the narrative. Just a blurry shadow behind the curtain. But here's the twist. People didn't buy it. Her story didn't add up. People remembered things. Friends knew about the canceled anniversary. Her coworkers had seen her leave with Roland the night before. The guy she thought would be her backup alibi suddenly became the missing puzzle piece that made everything make sense. And the comments? They weren't kind. You were bragging about that dinner last week, though. Didn't you say Curtis was too soft for you? Now you're sad? Girl, if he left without a word, maybe there was a reason. I watched the mask slip from miles away, one post at a time. And then came the message that told me everything I needed to know. It was short, cold, the kind of thing she only sent when her pride was bleeding. You win. But here's the truth she never understood. There were no winners here. Only survivors. And I had no interest in going back for the wreckage. But the story wasn't over yet, not by a long shot. Because karma has a schedule, and she was about to learn what it feels like when it shows up early. I hadn't planned on revenge. That's the honest truth. I wasn't interested in petty drama or embarrassing her publicly. I didn't want to feed the fire. All I wanted was to disappear and take back what little dignity I had left. But sometimes, karma doesn't need your help. Sometimes, it just needs you to stay silent long enough and let the right person speak. That person, in this case, was Roland's wife. Yeah, that's right. Turns out Roland wasn't divorced like Dana believed. He was married. Still is, actually, to a woman named Monica Wortham, the kind of woman Dana used to roll her eyes at in conversation. She doesn't understand him. Dana once whispered over wine when I'd asked why Roland's wife never came to company events. She's cold, controlling, a ghost in his house. I remember nodding quietly, trying to hide the fact that I already saw the cracks forming in our own home. Monica, however, was very real, very present, and very done pretending she didn't know what her husband was doing. I found out because she messaged me, out of nowhere. A polite, calculated email that hit harder than any voicemail Dana had left me. Mr. Westbrook, I believe we are both married to liars. I thought you might want some clarity. Attached are the files. I'm sorry you had to learn this way. There were 5 files. Hotel receipts. Screenshots of text messages between Dana and Roland. A selfie she had sent him, wearing his tie, in his office, her lips pressed to the knot. But the final file was what really stunned me. A recorded voicemail Dana had left Roland just 3 days before our anniversary. It started sweet, then turned heated. She sounded impatient, desperate. You said you'd talk to her by now. You said you'd end it. What are we even doing, Roland? I'm tired of sneaking around. Curtis is a puppy. He'll roll over like always. But you made promises, and I need you to keep them. It was like watching a stranger wear my wife's face. And Monica? She'd had enough. Apparently, she'd suspected the affair for over a year. But it wasn't until Dana started showing up in more meetings, more overnight conferences, more team retreats, that she decided to dig. And once she did, she found everything. And now, she was preparing to burn the house down. Not literally, but legally. She'd filed for separation. Was preparing to leak documents to the company's ethics board. She wanted his name off every internal contract, and she had enough proof of misconduct to make it happen. But the most interesting part of her message? She didn't want revenge. She wanted partnership. I'm not interested in gossip, Curtis. I'm interested in truth. You don't owe me anything. But if you're willing to talk, I think we can help each other make sure they face the consequences they so carefully thought they'd never see. That was the moment I realized I wasn't alone. Not in my pain, not in my humiliation, and not in my silence. I never needed to scream, or threaten, or make a spectacle. All I had to do was let the people they underestimated, me and Monica, stand still long enough for their lies to collapse on top of them. And that collapse? It was already beginning. I didn't attend the meeting. I wasn't invited, obviously, but I knew it was happening. Monica had been preparing for weeks, and she didn't miss a single detail. She scheduled it directly with the company's executive HR division, bypassed the local management entirely. That was smart. That's the thing about women like Monica. The ones you ignore, overlook, write off as just the wife. They notice everything, and when they move with precision. It happened on a Thursday morning. Roland was already in the building. Dana showed up a few minutes after, wearing that smug, professional calm she always used when she wanted to look composed in chaos. Monica, I'm told, was already in the conference room waiting, sitting at the head of the table with a calmness that probably made Dana's stomach turn. Within the first 10 minutes, Monica presented everything. Emails, messages, photos, voicemails. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She let the documentation do the screaming. According to one of the HR staff, who, let's just say, has no loyalty to Roland, Dana looked like she wanted to disappear. Not cry. Not beg. Vanish. At one point, when confronted with the messages and expense reports showing hotel stays she filed as client dinners, Dana apparently tried to spin it. It was mentorship, she said. To which Monica, unfazed, responded, "That wasn't mentoring. That was marital demolition." Roland, for his part, said nothing. I'm told he just sat there, jaw tight, hands folded, as Monica laid waste to the facade he had built. And then came the final blow. Monica revealed she had already forwarded everything to the company's compliance division, the people who handle ethics violations, fraud, and internal investigations. She wasn't just filing for divorce. She was making sure Roland would lose his corner office, his six-figure bonus, and possibly his entire career. Dana tried to salvage it. Of course she did. She tried to fall back on charm. She even tried to separate herself from Roland in the story, painting herself as a manipulated junior employee who didn't understand the power dynamics at play. That would have worked. Maybe, if not for the fact that she had texted him, "You said you'd leave her. I gave you everything." That text was printed, time-stamped, and sitting in a folder with HR's name on it. By the end of the meeting, Roland was suspended pending investigation. Dana was placed on unpaid leave. Monica walked out without raising her voice once. And me? I was miles away, sipping cheap motel coffee, watching the whole thing unfold through quiet updates and the occasional forwarded screenshot. I didn't lift a single finger. I didn't post online. I didn't tell a soul outside the circle who already knew. I just waited and watched her empire collapse. That night, I got a text from Dana. It read, "Are you happy now?" No greeting. No apology. No reflection. Just blame, as usual. I didn't reply. What was there to say? She bet everything on a man who promised her the world behind closed doors, and now those doors were locked from the outside. But the story doesn't end with her career falling apart. Because what happens next? That's when she comes crawling back to me. And I wasn't ready for how far she'd go. It happened 3 weeks after the fallout. After Roland was forced into early retirement. After Dana's name quietly disappeared from her company's site. After the rumors stopped being rumors and started sounding more like punchlines. I'd started rebuilding by then. Slowly. Quietly. I wasn't looking for a dramatic transformation or a cinematic glow-up. I just wanted peace. I found a small rental 2 towns over. Nothing fancy, but it had quiet mornings and a backyard full of birds I couldn't name. I got back into running again. Cooking. Sleeping. I even started consulting on the side, using my skills to help small medical offices with their tech instead of clocking in for someone who thought I was disposable. It felt good. Not dramatic. Just real. Stable. Mine. And then she showed up. It was a Tuesday. Late afternoon. I just finished emailing a client when I heard a knock at the door. I didn't have to check the window. I already knew it was her. You feel certain presences like you feel storms before they break. I opened the door, and there she was. Dana. Pale, lips pressed tight, eyes already glassy. She wore none of her usual sharpness. No heels. No makeup. Just jeans and a hoodie and the weight of everything she never thought she'd lose. "Can I come in?" she asked, voice shaking. I didn't move. Why? She blinked, startled, maybe expecting me to melt, to reach for her, to let her cry and scream and blame and beg like she always did when her world spun out. Instead, I stood still, calm. I wanted to say I'm sorry, she whispered. I nodded. Okay. Curtis, she said my name like it hurt her. I messed up. I know that. I know you probably hate me. I cut in. But I don't love you anymore either. And that's worse. She froze. I didn't mean it to be cruel. I said it with complete honesty. Because I didn't. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I just wasn't hers. Not anymore. She tried to smile. Maybe we could talk? Maybe just get coffee or something. See where we are? We're not anywhere, Dana, I said gently. You left me long before I walked out that door. I just finally caught up. She looked down. Her hand twitched at her side like she didn't know what to do with it. I didn't think you'd really leave. I know, I said. That's the part that broke me the most. There was nothing left to say. She looked up at me, searching for something in my face. Some crack. Some leftover softness. But I was done being the man who waited in the corner of her life. I stepped back and quietly closed the door. I stood there for a long time afterward. Not sad, not triumphant, just still. In the weeks that followed, I kept moving forward. Started working full-time on my consulting. Reconnected with friends I hadn't talked to in years. Eventually, I met someone. Nothing fast, nothing flashy. Just a kind, steady woman named Elise who didn't make me guess how she felt. Who looked at me like I was enough, exactly as I was. Dana never reached out again. And me? I never needed her to. Because sometimes the best revenge is peace. And I finally had mine.